Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good. And we're honored to be with Mayor Ken Moore. We get to talk about Find Hope Franklin and so much more. So, Ken, how are you doing?
I'm having a great day. It's been busy, but things are going well right now.
Well, let's dive in. Let's start off talking about Franklin. You've got a lot of amazing stats, some national recognition, but give us a little bit of just, some of the cool stats, cool storylines that put a smile on your face that you want everyone to know when it comes to Franklin.
Well, I think I'd start out with a recent recognition by Money Magazine. This is the fourth year in a row that they've recognized us as a top city to live in and to visit. So this year we're number 3. I guess we're still trying to be number 1. So what a great honor. And of course, last year we were recognized as an all-American city. We were one of 9 cities in America, all across America, that was recognized. So we're very honored that people recognize the great things that are happening in our community.
What all goes into, when you talk about being an all-American city, paint the picture of some of the things that they look at so that people understand these are all the different facets of what they examine to give you that recognition.
Well, All-American City is actually a competition where you create a storyline to tell what you're doing, and then you actually are interviewed and compete against other cities all across America. And the issues that we had that helped us win that designation was the Fuller story and also Find Hope Franklin. Just how we had community involvement, how we were telling stories, and how we were trying to take care of our community.
So that's a good segue into Find Hope Franklin. Let's start there. Give us a little backstory of what led you to launch this, because it's a really cool focus and effort really around mental health. And so talk about what you're doing, the backstory in terms of leading into it.
Well, the backstory started with an invitation from one of our high schools for Chief Faulkner, our police chief, and myself to visit and make some comments during a Come Out of Darkness event, which is a youth suicide prevention initiative. And I didn't know Chief Faulkner was going. She didn't know I was going. So we started that conversation about our concern in our community about suicide. And also she shared with me the number of calls that her policemen respond to that are mental health crises situations. We had a number of conversations about this, and I decided based on those conversations, I needed to get some people together to discuss this issue and figure out a community approach to it. So we formed a blue ribbon panel, which eventually became Find Hope Franklin, and we had a facilitator that helped us craft how we were going to address this in the initial phase, which was suicide prevention training, or QPR, raising awareness and discussion and destigmatizing talking about mental illness, and then developing a website that we thought had the best information for people that were having mental health crisis. And finally, we identified that long-term, we need a facility where people could be taken if they're having a mental health crisis and get into a continuum of care. When I say that, it needs a little bit of explanation, because many of these mental health crises get in the back of a police car and they either go to jail or they go to the emergency room, and neither one are the best places for that situation. So we're excited that we've had trained almost 200 people in question, persuade, refer already, and we're going to continue that initiative. We think people should, if they know CPR, they ought to know QPR.
Yeah, I was just about to say, you led me right into that one, because I was going to say, you say a lot, people know CPR and they need to know QPR. Explain what that means, because obviously you kind of talked about the words, what they mean, but explain what that means in terms of the training for an individual to be better equipped.
Well, this is a 1-hour training where people understand what kind of, well, first of all, they're taught to recognize what some of the key phrases that people are going to say. I mean, the most obvious one, I think I'm going to kill myself. Well, I mean, that should raise a red flag, but there are other more subtle comments that people may make, certain attitudes that they may be displaying. And the course teaches you how to ask questions to better understand what's going on. And then lastly, have that knowledge of where people can be, resources they can have, and how you can participate in helping them get care. It's just caring about people. I mean, we all care about our neighbors, but sometimes people get so low and down that they just lose hope. And so some way to give them hope to get back up again.
Well, and I do think that you're exactly right on the training side. Is the more we can educate, because education is the key. The more we can educate on the warning signs, how to properly respond, how to ask the right questions, and where to go, then that gives you power to be able to step in and help someone. Because in many cases, if you don't know what to look for, where to go, you almost feel powerless. You don't know how to help somebody in that situation. But by doing that, you're equipping them, you're equipping the community to really love and care for each other. And that's, to me, a cool thing is, in many cases, nonprofits, an individual nonprofit says, I'm going to tackle this. But you, as a citywide effort, I think it's a really cool thing to galvanize, bring the community together and all the different various nonprofits and say, this is a community-wide effort. Let's really work together. Share that perspective of not necessarily leaning on one nonprofit or another. It's like, no, this is a citywide effort. Talk about the importance of that.
Well, we do have partners that are participating in this, and one of our major partners is Franklin Tomorrow, which is a nonprofit visioning organization here and a great community partner. So they were able to obtain a grant to help us actually train trainers in QPR. So these folks have gone to a whole day course to be able to teach other people in the 1 hour course. So that was a good initiative, and we'll continue to work to possibly get some more grants. We're also partnering with the Refuge Center, which is a counseling center that, interesting enough, it has a sliding scale as far as what they charge folks. So there are people that may pay the max, and there are people that are going to pay, minimal or maybe none. So they're a great partner in our community, as is Mercy Community Healthcare, which is a clinic that treats both children and adults that may be underinsured, non-insured, or maybe even fully insured. Both great organizations in our community that give back so much.
Yeah, and you're leveraging their strengths. I mean, I think that's the beauty of it, is strategically everyone's playing their role, just like a team. They're all playing their role so that in the end, the community wins. What's been the feedback so far? What's been some of the feedback, the testimonials? Talk about kind of the progress on that side.
Well, I think we're starting to get some traction, particularly because the 200 people we've already trained, and the fact that we're having 2 other courses and they're filling up. And we're going to continue that to try to offer several courses a month moving forward. The pandemic has been a little bit of a challenge for us, for sure. But I think we're getting the conversation in the community going. Certainly, the stress of the pandemic has raised more awareness of mental health and anxiety and depression in our community. And so that conversation has been helped by the pandemic.
You mentioned the Fuller story. Go ahead and elaborate on the Fuller story.
Well, the Fuller story has to do with the Confederate monument in the center of our square. This was erected in, I believe, in 1899 by the Daughters of the Confederacy to recognize the soldiers that died in the Battle of Franklin. For those not familiar with the Battle of Franklin, it was a very short battle, a matter of a few hours, and over 10,000 people were injured. So a very, very bloody battle. That monument became controversial after Charlottesville. It probably was already controversial prior to that, and many of us, or much of the community, didn't even recognize that. And 3 pastors came up to us, plus a historian, and talked to us and said, that monument's got to go, just like many other monuments were being torn down. And it's interesting that through their discussions, they decided that that was part of Franklin's story. And so maybe the idea to tell more of the story and not necessarily the more glamorous sides of the story. And I don't know that I can, maybe glamorous is not really the correct word, but we wanted to include the African-American portion of that story. And some of it is not pretty. You know, the fact that humans were so on our square, the things that happened during the Jim Crow era. But there are positive things too, such as slaves going into the historic courthouse and coming out free men, and many of them became U.S. colored troops that fought during the Civil War. And October 23rd, we're going to be dedicating a U.S. colored troop bronze statue here on the square to commemorate the many slaves that became free men and served our country. But there are other things happening that because of that fuller story, such as recognizing Dr. Martin Luther King by recent street naming, and that was Martin Luther King Jr., and also naming a street after A.N.C. Williams. Now, A.N.C. Williams is a fabulous story. He was a slave. He became a free man. He became a merchant. He had a store on Main Street for over 60 years. And he became, I would say he was a real estate mogul. He bought and sold a lot of property and developed certain areas in our community for the African-American community. So it's a great story. And in fact, during a riot in Franklin many years ago, he was part of the group that tried to calm the riot. So he was a community guy. And so just a great story. He was very well respected. He also, I think it was a shoe shop he had, but he also sold pies. I bet they must have been really good.
Well, and I think to your point, going back and like you said, not telling one side of the story, telling the whole story, like all the different sides of the story. And so when you start telling the whole story and being inclusive, that becomes the opportunity for everyone to grow and to move forward in the right direction. Carry that forward into Unite Williamson.
Well, Unite Williamson also is something that resulted from tragedy. One of our African-American ministers, Dr. Kenneth Hill at Shorter Chapel AME Church, called me after the people were murdered at the Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston and said, we need to have a prayer vigil. And I said, I agree with you. And so a number of community leaders came together and had a prayer service at his church for the folks there in Charleston, who happened to be, some of them were Pastor Hill's friends, people he knew. And we shared the story, or I shared the thought with him. I said, for a long time, one of the visions I've had is our community should have some type of prayer breakfast, you know, for our community. You know, Nashville has one, the governor has one. And so we had that discussion, and we started bringing some folks in to have further discussion about that, and actually decided that what Unite Williamson should be an interfaith prayer breakfast where we help people understand their neighbors. And I think one of the perfect examples of that event is we have many speakers in it. But one of the speakers was a layman from the Catholic Church. And when he finished his comments, he said, everybody take out their phone. I said, oh no, this scared me to death. But he said, find somebody you don't know and get their number. So out of that resulted many people getting the phone number of somebody they didn't know, different ethnicity, different religion, and then sharing conversations with them over lunch or breakfast. And so the person I met was a Pakistani American, third generation Muslim, he shared many stories with me and just a better understanding of who our neighbors are in our community.
Yeah, I love that. Wrap up with what's something you wish everyone knew about Franklin?
Franklin is a very, very blessed community that we've been very fortunate to attract a lot of headquarters here. We have great schools, very low taxes. It's a great place to live, work, raise a family, and to worship. And, we embrace people that move here. What's strange about it, maybe this is the thing that people would not know, is that we do have a lot of people that move here from other places in the country. But when they come to Franklin, they don't act like they're from those other states. They act like they're from Franklin. So
nice. Wrap up with website, contact information. Where would you send everyone to learn more about Find Hope Franklin and just Franklin in general?
Well, of course, the city website is a good guide, cityofFranklin.tn.gov. Another one would be Visit Franklin, which is our local visitors bureau. And if you want to know more about Find Hope Franklin, it's findhopefranklin.org or .com, either one. And Unite Williamson, I believe we have a website on that too. So I would just Google any of those terms and it'll take you to it.
Yeah, that's the easy answer. Is just Google it and you'll find them. Exactly.
Yeah, I wish I'd invented Google, don't you?
Absolutely. Well, Mayor Kenmore, thank you for all you do. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. Have a great day.